3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
We're going to do a full install, full ClearPlex install, showcasing our new ClearPlex Contour. Here with probably one of the more experienced ClearPlex windshield protection film dealers, Payne. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm David Jensen. I manage the ClearPlex and PPF and car care programs for Madico. So the purpose of this video is we're gonna show just a full install, kind of, real world, without taking like any breaks to point out anything like specifically to show how long it's going to take. And the benefit is to see sort of the improvements that were the improved features and benefits that
I'm gonna have to razor blade this side.
I got a razor blade. The improved features and benefits of our ClearPlex Contour. So, like in that step, what we did is we did a white scrub pad. Then after you do the white scrub pad, you want to massage the windshield and feel for stuck on dirt and debris. And this windshield has a decent amount, so we're probably gonna scrape most of the windshield. Do you ever use a 3-inch, Chris, or you prefer just the 1-inch?
I don't think I prefer. I mean, a 3-inch would probably be better from an efficiency standpoint, but
yeah, but on some of the windshields with maybe tighter curves that you might not be able to get away
right.
with. You think? Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna get where this part of the blade's useless, anyways.
Yeah. All right. So we've removed the wipers. That's a step that you sometimes don't always need to do. It really does help with making sure you have like better access for cutting, for heat shrinking, because sometimes vehicle dependent the wipers can kind of like impede your access to that bottom edge.
I do recommend that if you're gonna do wiper removal, that you familiarize yourself with the make and model of the wiper removal that you're doing, because some wipers can be very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
You even get into wipers such as like the Ferraris that are a 2-step or a 2-arm wiper system, and they can be pretty intricate. I always like to take a picture of the wipers before we remove them, so you know placement, so that you can put them back in the right places, and it helps really to ensure that you don't have any issues after the install.
Yeah, in my early ClearPlex days, there were a couple times where like I popped the wiper in service mode to remove them.
Yeah.
And then forgot that, and when I installed it in service mode, and then when you use the wipers, when that happens, they'll just go down, thinking they're up. So yeah, that's super important, and remembering like which nut was for the driver's side and passenger side. All right, so we've done like the primary cleaning. We're gonna hit this with surface prep after we shrink.
Yep.
But this is gonna be the last kind of cleaning step. This just removes any like if there's any leftover coatings or things of that nature that might interfere with the adhesion of the film to the glass. For vehicles that have like ceramic coatings that might have been on the glass, Chris, what would you say is your best way to identify if they have
if you're seeing, if you wash it or you're seeing a super hydrophobic scenario, if you have the capabilities of polishing the windshield to make sure that you're getting rid of that coating or that Rain-X kind of scenario, I highly recommend it because it could cause an issue, especially from a lifting standpoint after the install is complete.
All right, so you guys kind of saw what we did like this because we're fighting the roof of this, the roof of the RV. And this goes to show you how like the curvature of the windshield plays a role in the width that you need. So sometimes people will be like, oh, maybe I can get by with a 36 because it's measuring 35, but because the windshield's curved, the edges are usually higher. So you saw that we laid it across and it was over the edge in the middle, but we had like a 3-inch gap. So we're gonna cut an overlap, and we're gonna leave this overlapped as we shrink. You want me to cut that a little bit your way? I can get it.
You want to pull over towards you a little bit?
Yep.
Keep going. Pull the top. There we go.
So you're gonna see us like snap our blades throughout the process. ClearPlex is 4 mil, so it's gonna wear your blade out. What you will find though with our new Contour is, and that the reason why we kind of call it Contour, it's more pliable. So you tend to not have to replace your blade as frequently as you might with our, original version.
You're gonna cut the bottom?
Yeah, and then I'm gonna leave it overlapped on the bottom too. So I tend to kind of like follow the hood line a little bit.
Yep.
There's a couple of reasons why it's nice leaving it overlapped. Like one, ClearPlex, like other exterior protective films like PPF, isn't the cheapest product. So having that overlap allows you to if you do accidentally burn an edge or something like that. And then can you bump it down just a tiny bit because they're. Are you still good?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. It allows you to like salvage a roll in case you salvage a piece of film in case you might burn an edge. You can bump it up and down. All right. So one of the things I like to point out is, and if anyone's done.
And while you do this, I'm gonna go get my hard card.
Done a Sprinter before, like one of the things you tend to notice with. Do you have a little bit of overlap on your edge?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Right. I think
I'm
that's
good there.
Cool. Is you tend to see that the fingers are smaller just right off the bat, and that's because it's not the film itself is softer or anything. It's still made of PET, so it has that kind of rigid glass-like characteristic. It's just a little bit more pliable. And since it's not as like rigid, you tend to get fingers that are smaller. So we're doing a wet shrink. Again, a couple of reasons why we teach wet. Windshields are laminated, so they are you know, the amount of temperature you subject them to is important. Like, that's an important consideration. And then also, I think I've found that you can read the film a little bit easier, wet shrink versus dry shrink. So we're just going to do a tack right down the middle. We're going to throw our side fingers up to the top and bottom initially, but then we're going to bring them back to the sides. But so if you want to do the H.
Yeah, I already did.
Okay. So before we shrink, and this will probably be one of the only, like, you know, like kind of areas where we stop the install to show you guys what you're looking for. So windshields are symmetrical if you cut them down the middle. And so if you break them into 4 quadrants, top driver, top passenger, bottom driver, each of those corresponding quadrants have identical curvature, or should. And so the top drivers is the same as top passengers, bottom drivers same as bottom passengers. The curvature of the windshield is what you see as the fingers, right? So that means your fingers should be equal when you compare those quadrants. So when you come in from the top drivers and top passengers, we have a finger, and then we have another finger. So we have about 4. They don't have to be in the exact like area, but just generally speaking, that's what you want to look for. And then same thing with the bottom. So if it was cockeyed or something like that, then you would know that maybe your force wasn't evenly distributed. So we're just going to throw the side fingers back on the side, and then what Chris and I are going to do is we're going to shrink the top and bottom, and then once we got the top and bottom fingers shrunk, then we're going to work the side fingers. So both Chris and I have different heat guns, but the name of the game with this is you want to get a heat gun that blows a lot of air. So the temperature that we generally say you want 1080 Fahrenheit, and you want a gun that blows, you know, a lot of air. These guns, there's an air rating called CFM. And both of these guns blow in the middle to high teens. So it's not just, the name of the game isn't just temperature, but also, you know, the amount of air that's being blown. So we're gonna do a kind of a wet pocket shrink, where what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that edge. This is a little.
Yeah, we can't really get in there.
Yeah. So this is real world though, right? Like we're working around. So you're getting that edge to react. And then once that edge reacts, work your way down. So Chris and I both were like getting that whole quadrant warm, and then coming back to a finger. Because if you've ever shrunk ClearPlex, you know that that stress likes to move around on you. And so, you know, when a finger kind of moves and that stress moves to a different part of that quadrant, you want the film where that finger moves to be warm, because you generally will get that finger to react a lot faster. One of the reasons too why you like to have that film overlapped is when you get that good shrink, that the film will kind of roll over the edge of the glass, and so you'll see it suck around the edge, and then that's kind of like that telltale sign that you've got that edge reacted properly. So we've got that initial top done. Now we're going to move to the bottom, and then after we get that done, we'll move to the side fingers and either throw them to the top or the bottom. So getting that whole quadrant warm. So, you know, in your opinion, Chris, you know, because you have a lot of experience with our original version, you know, which we still offer, isn't going away. Like, how you say you notice like a difference in how this film reacts? Or?
Yeah, this is night and day. So if this was the original, which I have several boxes, So we stock quite a bit of ClearPlex. I can tell you that if this was the original, I'd still be working on the top for another 15 minutes. So the fact that I'm already almost done with the bottom is actually very mind-blowing to myself. And wished I had this film years ago.
Yeah, and that's, you know, so our goal with this,
This is amazing.
And in no way, you know, like every company that launches film for all different reasons. So we specifically have really thought that the polyester film is the way to go, just because we think it offers the best features and benefits for the end user. But those things being said, we did understand that, you know, there was a need to improve the installer experience. So we think we've done that with this, in that it has pretty much the same features and benefits. Well, the same, if not better, when it comes to clarity, longevity, you know, scratch resistance. So we don't compromise any of that while, you know, coming in a film that noticeably has an improved shrink. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move these to the top and bottom. You can kind of like chip away at them a little bit. You can't do a true side shrink, so to speak, but the purpose of that is to get it so when it gets to the top or bottom,
it becomes manageable.
Yeah, it becomes manageable.
If it's your first time ever installing ClearShield or ClearPlex, it can be very intimidating in the very first time. Just remember that, you know, take your time, you'll get it. You know, I can tell you that David is about the best support system you could ever ask for. When I was new to the ClearPlex, I probably called him way more than he ever wanted me to.
Yeah, that's why we're here, though. And I appreciate that. Yeah,
I can tell you that as a whole, the entire team is amazing. But David truly is willing to go the extra mile to make sure that you don't have any issues and that your learning experience is really a great one.
Thank you. And yeah, obviously Chris, consummate professional, auto film guys, is, you know, second to none when it comes to all things automotive protection film products. All right, so I don't know if you guys kind of saw, I moved some fingers around because some of the fingers weren't at a 90. So you always want to work fingers when they're at a 90, if they're, you know, if they're a little cockeyed. And so there's little things like, I don't come from a window tinting background. So, you know, whenever I train tinters, like some of the things I'll say is like, I mean, they'll say, well, if you use that heat or that force with tint, it would, you know, fall in on itself. And you got to understand, this is similar. It's similar, but different, right? It's made out of the same material, but it's, you know, about 2.5 times as thick. Tint is generally, you know, 1.5 mil. This is 4 mil.
The one thing I'll tell you is that, like, if you guys see how we have this little bit of a finger here, but if you'll notice, if you hold your squeegee here, it lays flat with no creases. You don't have to keep fighting to make sure that that's 100% flat.
Yeah.
The film is very, very forgiving. And during the install, you can push a lot of things out, especially if you are a window tinter, that you're not normally, we're trained to not try to push anything out. We want it as flat and as tight as it can be. Whereas ClearPlex, you don't have to have that same mentality. There are a lot of things, because the adhesive is extremely aggressive, that you can push out. And so you'll see that we may not have the tightest shrink. I mean, we're actually getting a really good shrink on this one. But if for some reason you have a finger that is really fighting you, if you just hold your card down at the edge of the glass, right, and you don't have any creases, the film's laying flat, more times than not, you're going to be perfectly fine. That once you pull that liner off and expose the adhesive, adhesion.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It'll go down no problem for you.
And that's a big thing, because once you pull the liner off, you're taking, you know, 20% of the thickness away. So like to what Chris mentioned, there was a little side finger here. I went over with my hard card, and like I use kind of like a 1 or a 2 second count. So if I go over with my wet edge and it stays stuck, the adhesive will hold that down, you know, because there are times where you might you might trick yourself into thinking that there's stress. All right, so I took my watch off, but I don't know how long, like I think we've only been shrinking for maybe less than 10 minutes. Right, I would probably say shrinking for a little bit less than 10 minutes. That's the big aspect we want to showcase with this, you know, because when it comes to all of the other aspects of the installation, cleaning, installing, like the film itself, it's pretty much apples to apples regardless of the variant. There's a bunch of different types of variants of windshield protection on the market. And so the shrinking aspect is the thing with the polyester films that is different. Everything else is pretty much the same, you know, takes the same amount of time to clean, cut, release a liner, lay the film down. So there's two different areas where like you've seen improvements. One, you start from an easier starting point, right? Your fingers aren't as big.
Yep.
And then two, it just reacts faster. The way our R&D team kind of explained it is if ClearPlex Original and Contour's burn points are about the same, depending on the vehicle, as you know, like the reaction point for a difficult vehicle is really close to the burn point, right? Well, for Contour, that reaction, regardless of the vehicle you're working on, is dropped. So you're not having to toe the burn point line like you might have to toe with our original. And then also you're at an easier starting point.
Yep.
So what we've kind of like, our goal with this product was to make something that's built for tinters, right? Like people like, there is an insinuation that someone needs to have a level of knowledge of heat shrinking, right? So that was, it wasn't like an intention to go out and build something that, you know, was, you know, something that might be like applicable to all types of film installers. We because there's aspects of polyester that we think, you know, provide some good features and benefits. So that is a factor that you would have to assume some level of window tinting experience. But what we sought was, if you're a tinter, the learning curve is small to none with this.
Yeah. Which
was not the case with our original, you know. And so we're going to continue the install process and kind of, you know, stop breaking out. So when we go for our whole our entire install time, we can probably minus 10 minutes of my lecturing. But what we're going to do now, we're going to do almost our final cut. We're going to trim off the excess on the top.
How are you on the side?
I'm tight. I'm like right on the edge.
Okay, so I'm going to have to trim a little bit on my side.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if.
And I can trim a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so we got to trim still. Okay.
Okay. Yep. And you know, I'm always like overly cautious on my blade, so snap that. And then this Sprinter is really nice. It has super wide gap between so it has floating glass, but it has a really big gap between the glass and the body panel edge, which allows you to get, you know, a nice, you can almost shave the edge to an extent. When it comes to edges though, I always say it's kind of better to be safe than sort of push it when it comes to your gap. You know, since this is a polyester film, you're not going to wrap the edge, and so it's better to kind of err on the side of a slight gap versus trying to get it so tight where you might have some overlap. So I'm just going to trim it so it's tight right now, and then we can shift it.
Okay.
You want to do that, or?
I don't have enough room to. I'm like kind of wonky. So I'll have you trim your side.
Yeah.
And then when we bump down, then I'll bump over.
Okay. And if you can't see it on the video, like both Chris and I, as we're riding this edge, we have our knife angled inward, and what that does is that gives the edge a nice, it bevels the edge. So you want to get a little water in there?
think David just wanted to do that to spray me in the face.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm usually pretty ignorant about where my...
He gets careless with his bottle.
Yeah. So you want to bump it your way, right?
Yeah. Let's, can I bump like right there to do a trim?
Yeah. Perfect.
And then it'll probably end up giving you what you need.
Yeah. You know, when you trim, you can always sort of kind of do like a bottom adjustment with any gap. You know, because I mean this Sprinter, the hood edge is probably higher than the bottom edge of the glass by a couple of inches, right? So if there's any edge, you can kind of like cheat on having a gap just so the edges that you can see are tighter. It's definitely the bottom edge.
Again, and it's not only that you're cheating, you know, the reality is if the hood is blocking it, the likelihoods of it getting hit with an impact is slim. So don't feel bad if that's what you have to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's...
Because I do like to point out that this product, a lot like, you know, PPF, this is first and foremost a protection product, right? It's like, it's not doing like an aesthetic change so much. Well, I mean, now you have obviously color PPF, but like this is very much a protection product. It serves a purpose. And depending on the vehicle type, sometimes a slight gap is required because you simply can't get to the bottom edge based on where the hood sits. But as long as you're providing protection against the areas where that would see impacts, that is sufficient. And we're just kind of doing a sort of like a wet check.
And if you notice, if you remember, we had that finger that kind of kept popping up in the middle. And you see, once we got the excess and got it trimmed, now there's definitely no finger.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a good example because you might want to hit that with heat and hit that with heat and hit that with heat, and then you might burn the film. You know, so especially if you, we always advise shrinking with an overlap. So if you're shrinking with an overlap, shrink it 95, 98%. Cut the edges back, and then see what you're dealing with before you continue exposing it to heat. So we're just gonna cut the bottom edge. I might let you do the honors just because you're...
Do we want to bump down a hair more? I guess it's probably a little... I don't know if we're gonna get any movement out of it. Oh, may have been premature here. Well, what I'll do is I'll just hand cut.
Okay.
Instead of the line, instead of shaving it.
Yeah. I'll let you do that. I'll be generous enough.
Thank you. So something I always try to do is the top and the sides. If you have the ability to use the edge of the glass to cut it and get a really straight, nice, clean cut, I always try to do that. But a lot of times, you know, you may have to just cut the bottom by hand to get your, and again, you know, it's an unexposed edge. A lot of times it's hidden behind a cowling or a hood. So don't feel that it's a absolute, you know, that has to be perfect. I mean, obviously we don't want you out there not making it perfect.
Teslas are a good example. There's no good way to access the bottom edge on a Tesla. You can either have the hood up sometimes or the hood down, right? But like that glass drops down so far that it's just difficult and awkward. And so if you're not comfortable cutting on the glass, you know the hard coat on this is really hydrophobic, so you're not going to be able to like draw a line and put it on a cutting board or a peel board with like a Sharpie. So use like a grease pen, wax marker, something like that, if that's something you prefer. Because that would be where, you know, as Chris mentioned, as long as it's consistent, right? So, you know, you don't want to have a wobbly edge. But if it's a consistent cut and there's no glass exposed. I'll move that so you don't get burned. That's more than satisfactory. And that's where, if you have a hard time reaching that edge, or you're just uncomfortable cutting on glass, you can use a wax pen, draw the edge, and then move it to a peel board to cut it. So, a lot of dealers that are watching this, if you guys might have seen, that the interest in windshield protection film has really peaked from your customer base. There's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with government mandates. So you want to roll this up and then we can clean?
Yep.
So, depending on the size of the windshield, sometimes you can deal with this in a sheet, but when the film is really, really big like this, with this being a little bit more rigid of a film, you want to avoid dealing with a lot of film in a sheet, because you might crease it or handle it in a way where you get these little pin, tents.
Yeah.
So that's why, even though when we install this, we're gonna do the 2-person method. Rolling it up just makes it so that it's kind of contained. So we're gonna do our final clean, and then we're gonna install this.
Do you want me to bring a peel board over?
Sure, yeah.
We'll bring a peel board right here.
Okay. So while Chris goes and gets that peel board, I'll start doing the clean. So we're gonna hit it with just our slip solution. And when it comes to the slip, myself, not coming from a window tinting background, another feedback I get from tinners is that it seems that there's a little bit more soap that we use. A lot of that is you're just dealing with a lot more film. Because if you were doing a tint install on this, you would have a good 3 to 4 inches on either the top or bottom that you weren't handling, as well as this entire area, right? So you're just not dealing with as much film. So that slip just kind of gives you the ability to lay the film down. The last thing you want to do is lay it once the liner's removed and have to pick it back up. You want to be able to just sort of, bump it left, right, up, down to get it aligned. One thing I'd like to point out, right? We did a good job cleaning this, but this gasket right here, that holds a lot of dirt, right? So, and obviously gravity, right? We hit that with water. So we're going to be super careful to avoid introducing too much water up in that area.
And
that's, yeah.
The other thing you can do that we've used many a times, even on an older, truck or van, is we'll even go as far as taping that gasket off.
Yeah, and that's
just to help.
Yeah, because
to mitigate the dirt.
If you've ever installed on an older Porsche that's booted in, there's no amount of cleaning you can do to get that where dirt's not going to come out of it. So yeah, you want to clean it, right? And then you'd what type of tape? Just painter's tape?
Just an aggressive painter's tape kind of scenario. You don't want anything that's going to leave adhesive behind.
Yeah.
Because then you're adding a step of cleaning.
It's always important too to set proper expectations when it comes to the install. I think everybody understands that we always do our best to keep things contaminant free, but with windshield protection film it's been around for a while, but could very well be a majority of your customers' first experiences with it. The difference with this being exterior versus interior is once we clean it, there's a lot more ability for contaminants to fall down on the windshield.
Yep.
And whenever somebody gets a windshield or any film, they're going to be a lot more discerning and noticing of things that maybe were even in the glass. So you have to tell the customer that there's a couple of criteria. One, when they inspect the vehicle, it really should be real world driving conditions. And so what that means is driving the vehicle, looking through the windshield, scanning left and right as you would if you're driving, right? Not sitting under LED lights and trying to point out imperfections. Because if, as they drive and they look through the windshield, if they don't notice anything, then we would consider that to be something that's not a valid, like, contaminant.
Right.
You know, so setting proper expectations is important because, you know, everybody knows any, you know, PPF or tint. When somebody buys something, they're going to treat it to a different level of expectation than when they were just looking at their car pre-tint. That's important. But yeah, so you know, just as we were doing this, and you know, you're going to see there's going to be a period of time from when we do our final squeegee to when we lay the film down. And inevitably there will be some contamination to build up. You know, if you're diligent and you kind of work in a decent enough pace, that contamination should not be to the level that would, you know, qualify as, like, you know, defective or anything like that. All right, so
there's two different ways you can peel the liner. And you can have, you know, two guys that actually, one will hold it and the other one will peel the liner. Another way that, especially if you're a window tinter or you're a window tint shop, you're probably going to have some kind of peel board, which we just brought over. And the one thing that I will warn you about is that when you put it on the peel board, you have to remember that the curl is reversed. It's not like window tint. The curl wants to curl off the glass when the liner is on the outside or once you're getting ready to pull it. So if you walk away from that window, or if you don't have someone there to kind of monitor it while you're doing your final step or two, it very well could roll off and hit the ground. So be very mindful that once you transfer it to a peel board, that you are babysitting that film constantly so that it doesn't roll off the glass, because it's going to have you've already, with the shrink, you've introduced a reverse curl.
And also, like, to that point, I don't know if we touched on this, but when we shrink film side up. We were not shrinking liner side up.
Right.
So, yeah, the ClearPlex is rolled on the core opposite from tint. So it's going to be liner side in, you know, against the core, film side out. That's another reason why we kind of recommend wet shrinking, because you don't stress the film out. If you ever do dry shrink, which you can, we say always dry shrink liner side up. So we just hit this with our surface prep. Essentially, surface prep is like a kind of like highly modified, engineered, you know, isopropyl solution. It just has the way that we make it ensures that it's at the ratio that will not cause any silvering with adhesive, but also it has like it has ingredients that won't leave behind, you know, any impurities. So that's what we're advising, is that with the last step before applying any of our automotive exterior products, so that could be ClearPlex, our ProTech PPF, or our Endurance Car Care, you hit it with surface prep just to, you know, prep the surface and make sure that it's in its best state to ensure the bond of the coating or the film is you know, the best it could be. All right, so spray it down and then get ready to peel the liner. You'll see the squeegees Chris and I are using are more like flat glass than maybe traditional tint. It's important that you have like a little beefier handle like that Fusion 5-inch than just your standard to get you the force you need.
So if you'll notice, you see how these edges want to curl right off the glass. That's why you really want to make sure that you're babysitting it, because if not, it will end up on the ground and you are going to probably most likely be redoing it, your shrink, on a new piece of film.
All right.
right, you want me to start?
Yeah. Where do you want me to hold?
Just come over here. I got this.
Okay.
Now I will tell you that once you pull the liner has a lot of the memory from the shrink or the recurl. So a lot of times once you pull the liner off, it will actually stay on the glass just fine. I've always found it unique that the liner carries a lot of the memory.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's...
Yeah. So you'll see that side wanted to roll off, and now it's pretty good.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, the liner, being the thinner part of the construction, it actually holds a lot of the memory.
All right.
I'll let you go up first. Watch your hand. Oh, there you go. This is gonna wanna...
Look at that. I'm gonna throw a little bit of moisture under.
Something that will make your life a lot easier is really dialing in your slip solution. It's something that we played with for a long time when we were installing ClearPlex. If you have too much soap, you will get it to slide. It will just keep sliding on you, and you'll feel like you're never going to get it to lock in, which ultimately will then create silvering in the adhesive over a long period of movement, and you get grab marks, and it will not look aesthetically pleasing, especially from the driver's seat.
Yeah.
So,
and right here, like, essentially we're trying to disperse the stress, so your peanuts are as small as possible, so you're really not driving through any, like, you're essentially like semi-laying the film completely down with your hands, taking all of the stress out. And what we like to do is have one person monitor the edges while the other person locks their side down. Because if you both squeegee, because, you know, Chris mentioned slip solutions and whatnot, you could, you know, cause the film to shift. So really all I'm looking for is this gap and this gap around this edge the same? Because if it is, then I know the film everywhere else is maintaining their edges. If this gap starts to lower, I know that the gap over there is probably lowering too. So, so once Chris has locked that, now I can do my squeegees, and then your first pass is, you know, with the least amount of force you use, and then your next subsequent passes you're going to use a little bit more. You always want to go overlap your passes just to make sure, like, because if I had left some moisture trapped in the middle, that's where if you tried to drive that through film, you had already laid down, but you probably get silvering, right, Chris?
yeah. Or if you fall on your face.
Yeah. Yeah, but we wanted to show this install in a completely like real world, you know, I mean, I would say a good portion of the difficulty of this vehicle comes from simply its like size and how tall it is, right? So we have to use scaffolding. And with it being big, we might maybe do one or two more passes than we might do on a smaller vehicle, because it's difficult to get the force in the middle.
So you'll see I ended up with a finger on this side, and normally, like in the window film industry, you'd be like, oh boy, I didn't do it right. But with ClearPlex, especially when your slip is dialed in, you'll see one pass and it lays right down. It really does. Your slip and getting that dialed is going to be really crucial to making your installs a lot easier.
Yeah, and then we are going to hit the edges with a heat gun, just to get that to seal up. So you might see some slight edge lifting. So maybe just one more squeegee.
Yeah.
And then we should be done. And it's not a bad idea to kind of do cross hatch, right? So do some horizontal, do some vertical. That just
yeah, I'm really watching the front of my squeegee blade, and you know, throughout my pass, if I'm getting any major bubbles, then I know I got to keep going. If I'm not getting any water movement, I know I've kind of extracted as much as I can get with my body.
And this is where using like this 5-inch Fusion is helpful over maybe your standard window tint squeegee, because it's just going to allow you to get more force. Make sure that that film's laying down.
I will tell you, you really don't want to go much bigger than a 5-inch, because once you get into like the 8-inch, it sounds like a great idea, but because of the curve of the glass, you end up with about half the blade not touching the glass anyways throughout the pass, and it becomes a waste. Yeah. So really, as so weird as it sounds, kind of the 4 or 5-inch area is going to be your ideal sweet spot.
And so there was a little finger that was popping up right there. What I like to do is I'll hit it with a squeegee and then quickly follow it up with a microfiber, because all that means is like there's some moisture here. As you lay the film down, it's almost like a vacuum, so it likes to suck the moisture back in. So where are we at with the video runtime right now? Okay, let's see where we're at with the video runtime at the end, you know, because as mentioned, this is a good representation for how long it takes, but obviously we did do some, you know, talking throughout the process that added to it. But the objective of this was to show in a real world scenario with not your ideal windshield, how long. The shrink was less than 10 minutes, and we'll see where we're at. So really the very next step would be to heat seal. So we'll just get a heat gun, get our heat guns, we'll wrap our hard card in a microfiber, or if you have a blue shop, that's good too, because depending on the microfiber and how hard you press, you can maybe sometimes leave an imprint of the like weave of the microfiber into the adhesive, so just be careful of that. 47. Yeah, and I would say, so we're at 47 minutes, and I would say that we've probably
talked for 20 of it.
Yeah, talked for 20. We could have been done faster. Now, what do you generally recommend as like cure time before you hand it over to the customer?
I'd like to, you know, once you get the edges sealed, if you can let it sit outside in a good hot day, or you know, a heated booth, or you know, a heated room for a couple of hours, I always recommend it.
So kind of like if you do it in the AM, maybe you could turn it over by the end of the day, but
yeah,
like do it in the PM, maybe try to hold it over.
Maybe try to hold it overnight, especially if there's rain in the forecast or some, you know, a little bit of foul weather. You're definitely going to want to hold that. You don't want them driving it right when you're finished into a foul weather situation, because you will get lifting.
Yep. Cool. So we're all wrapped up. I think we were right at 47. Call it 50 minutes. Could probably take a good maybe 15, 20 off of that if we just worked through without all of the talking. So, you know, the benefit of that is what we see is we're pretty much across the line, regardless of the install or the vehicle. You're going to be able to get it done well within an hour. You know, maybe some of the caveats are a Tesla. But outside of that, outside of maybe a Model Y, you're going to be within an hour. That means, if you're charging market rate $550, $650, $700 for an install, and the reason why you can get that is goes back to the kind of government mandates I was talking about. Vehicles 2023 and newer must come equipped with automatic emergency braking, but this vehicle has other features which makes this windshield anywhere from probably $25 to $3,000 to replace, right? So you're now able to offer a ClearPlex install for a price point that is significant cost savings for the cost of one windshield replacement.
Yep.
But now it's not taking you 2 or 3 hours to do. You're getting it done in an hour. You don't have the burn marks, right? It's not fighting you as much. It's much more like a one-to-one with window film.
Yeah, and and keep in mind that you are building a customer base for an ongoing. You're building a customer base that's going to be repetitive to you at that point, because once they have gone through an 18 or 24 month period and it's gotten beaten up, they're coming back to you and wanting you to replace it so that they can have a fresh, clean windshield, but it's at a much cheaper rate than them to replace that windshield.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. And
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we're going to continue filming more content on Contour, focusing on all the cool new features and benefits. But yeah, that's a wrap here. So thank you.